All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for coming out and giving us some of your time tonight. My name is Matt Miller, proud superintendent at Lakota Schools. Tonight's presentation is going to be virtual and in person. So again, thank you for being here. This is Chris Passarge, who is our Biz Ops person, Chief Operations Officer. It seems like it changes all the time, or we just add something. And then through our portal here, we have our CFO Treasurer, Jenny Logan, and her number 2, Adam Zink, and they're at a conference, and so they were able to zoom in for this. So it's going to be sort of a 3-tiered approach. I also want to recognize our board members that were able to make it tonight. Board President Linda O'Connor, Board Vice President Isaac Adi, Board Member Darby Bodie, and our other 2 board members, Kelly Casper and Julie Schaefer, could not make this one tonight. But again, thank you for being here. I have some slides. We're going to get some input for all of you. This is just the beginning of the process, and there's much, much more to come. So when we talk about the building plan, this is tied into our strategic plan. It's tied into a lot of different things that we do, but every decision that we do is designed to provide a future-ready, student-centered learning experience for every single child. So this is part of that mission statement that we do and that permeates everything we do as a school district. Also tied into our vision, we are personalized, we are future-ready, fiscally responsible, and in this together. And certainly, facilities would be a part of being future-ready for our students. It actually fits a few of those. And if you have spent any time in Liberty Township or in Westchester, you know that things are changing. We have a lot of growth, especially in Liberty Township. Some of our communities in Westchester are older, but this is a great community and place to live. And so people, when their kids are moving out, they're not downsizing. They're staying in their homes as they get older. And so we have sort of an aging population in the southern part of the district and booming in growth in the northern part. We have already, as you can tell in our enrollment study, exceeded what the projections were in 2020. And so we have a little bit of growth. We are starting to add modulars to some of our buildings because of the crowding, and Chris can talk about that in just a second, or we can talk now.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Chris Passarge. I am the Chief Operations Officer for Lakota. Welcome. I'm glad you can come out tonight and hear a little bit about our facilities and our planning process. I just want to go over a few little things here, give you some information. As homeowners, you know what it takes to upkeep a home and what it takes to do the right things to keep your house operating functionally. It's no different than in the school, but on a much larger scale. Just give you some information. We have 2.3 million square feet that we maintain here in the district and over 500 acres worth of property. So it's a pretty big operation. We have 23 buildings that we maintain on a daily basis. And like your homes, as they age out, you have to look at things like HVAC system, electrical systems, plumbing, those types of things. So as you can see by this chart here, in the next couple of years, more than half of our buildings will be over 30 years old. So just think about your home and what you need to do within your home at that 30-year mark. Typically your roof has to be replaced. Maybe you're on your second water heater by then. Those types of things happen on a regular basis in your homes. And it's really no different here at the schools, that we have to look at our life cycles and upgrade our facilities and keep up to make sure they provide a clean, safe, and healthy environment for our staff and students as they learn in our building. A couple other little things here, you know, as we look through and as technology changes, for example, 2 of our newer buildings, Wyandotte and Endeavor, they have PA systems that we use for our classrooms to call out to our classrooms. The technology has grown so fast and so furious that, you know, the parts for that system is no longer available, even though it's only built in 2008. So when we have things like that fail, what may be a minor fix that's a part or two, you may not even have that part available anymore, and you have to buy a whole new system. So as you go through that and think about those things, those are things that you have to think about on a larger scale from a school district. So just to give you an idea of our existing building compared to a new building. So all of our buildings have gone through an assessment through the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, and we'll talk a little bit about that here. Really, it's a state organization that does all the design standards for public buildings, including schools. So they've come into our district and they've done an evaluation on all of our buildings to say, okay, if you're going to take this building, Woodland, and bring it up to current 2022 standards, what would you have to do that? And over the next 10 years, we'd have to invest about $6.5 million to bring it up to 2022 standards. In a new building over that 10-year period, you spend about $300,000 in maintenance and upkeep. Looking over the next 20 years for Woodland, a building that's already 35 years old, and those could be 55 by then. So look at, the roofs, the mechanicals, HVAC systems, life safety systems, all those things you'd have to do to bring it up to current standards. This building was built in the 80s, 90s, and if you look, there's no sprinkler system. So if you're going to renovate this building and bring it up to current code, you'd have to run a sprinkler system through this entire building to bring it up to current code. So that's why you see those costs spike so much when you look at those costs to renovate over the next few years.
Yep. So when we talk about equity in education, we're often talking about meeting the needs of our students where they're at, but we're also talking about our buildings and system supports that we can offer our students. I think this slide almost speaks for itself. You look at West Freshman, built in 1959, and how it compares not just the outside but the inside as well to East Freshman from 2008. Our teams, and Chris has alluded to this and a few people already have tonight, our teams do a great job with our facilities, with our buildings and the upkeep, but as Chris showed on a previous slide, you can see what the costs are to do that. If you ask a student or probably parents or community members about how they think their buildings look and how they're maintained, you probably get a different answer from everybody. But also, you look at some other schools in the district. Let me pull that back for a second. You look at schools like Shawnee or Creekside versus Wyandotte in the district, if you've been there, if you have kids there, if you've seen that. You look at Adena versus Union, Ridge and Plains, it's the same situation. But if you take that a step further, you can see how we compare to some of our neighboring districts around us. Lakota East High School and Sycamore High School, for example, not too much different, but obviously some more collaboration opportunities, I think, on the right. You look at Adena's collaborative learning spaces and Reading Elementaries. Here, this one, our kids are collaborating at Liberty Junior, just across the parking lot in the hallways, and you see the facilities that Mason Middle School has built for their kids. And then here's Lakota East High School's cafeteria, which is Saved by the Bellish, and Ashland High School as well. If you're laughing, it's because you're probably in the 35 to 45 age bracket. But you can tell there's a little bit of difference too when we're talking about facilities for our kids. Kind of a recap of where we're at and how we got to this point. We started this work in earnest in 2019, but we had to pause because of COVID. We started re-engaging again and had to pause again for COVID, and now we're fully back at it and hopeful that the third time's a charm. And so that's why we're starting this process again and getting input from our community. Spoiler alert, you're gonna have a chance to provide input, good, bad, or indifferent, on all the options that we're gonna show you tonight. So that's coming up at the end. One of the things that hasn't changed in those three sort of starts to this process, again, is the feedback that we receive from our community. So there's feedback around how we need to provide that personalized learning, but we need to have the facilities to get that done. Our parents also, and I think many in the community realize it too, our kids have too many transitions now. They go to too many different buildings, so we're going to talk about that. That's part of the plan. And of course, in light of most recent events, but it seems like it happens all too much, the safety and security of our buildings is certainly a factor of this plan as well. And then you see a couple of other things up here, smaller class sizes. The transitions already talked about, and so also what can the building do to help increase mental health supports for our kids in places that can happen. So that's also important. And Jenny, you're on. Are you okay? Can you hear us all right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good evening. Like Chris and Matt said, I'm Jenny Logan, Treasurer CFO of the district, and I have with me Adam Zink, the Assistant Treasurer, and we come to you from Austin, Texas, where it's about 104 today. So we're sitting in air conditioning right now, which is nice. We mentioned that, Matt talked about that timeline and how many times we've stopped and started with this process. Tonight we have 4 options that we're going to go into detail with you about. And over the summer month, we're going to gather all of that input and listen to our community. The board is going to take all of that feedback, all of that input, and then in the fall, decide which one of those 4 makes the most sense to move forward. Once the board decides which one of those, that's also going to lead into the financing plan of the master plan, because what you're going to also see is the very first option is a Lakota goes it alone plan, where we do not partner with the state. So that would be the decision moving forward. That finance plan is going to look a little bit different than what it would look like if we partner with the state. So if we partner with the state, and if somebody's advancing the slides, go ahead and do that. If we partner with the state, that program is called, we love acronyms in education, and so this is called ELP, the Expedited Local Partnership Program with the state of Ohio. What that means is basically we are expediting our plan in advance of when our number would come up with the state. So the way the state program works is they take all school districts in the state of Ohio. There's 609 that they evaluate for this program. And then they rank those school districts according to wealth as they determine. And it's a valuation per pupil. For perspective, this year, out of those 609 school districts, we are ranked 432. Number 1 would be considered the least wealthy, and 609 would be considered the wealthiest. So in 2018, 5 years ago, we were considered the 476th wealthiest district. So we have become less wealthy in the eyes of the state. So that's why when you look at the state share, we looked at it a year ago, it was 25%, now we're looking at 29%. Next slide. So if you participate with the state, Chris mentioned they evaluate each one of our buildings. And the way that they look at those buildings, they use a 2/3 rule. So once they assess that building, if the cost to renovate that building is more than 2/3 the cost that it would be to build new, then the state of Ohio says, no thank you. We're not going to put any of the state's money into that building. We are going to only put the state's money to those buildings that meet our criteria. So that's why we look around the building, and I'm sure in that room you're going to see a chart that has our school buildings that shows what the OFCC's evaluation showed for our buildings, which is we have 9 satisfactory schools where the state is saying, yes, it is worthwhile to put the money into those existing buildings and renovate them. We have 3 borderline schools where we might be able to work with the state of Ohio, and they might say, yes, we believe that we could work with you on those 3 schools, and you would not have to build new. And then we have 10 deficient schools that the state of Ohio is telling us we will not put money into those existing schools. We will only put money into new schools. And so now Chris is going to show you some videos that's going to give the details of each one of these options.
Thanks, Jenny. All right, we have, the board has narrowed it down to 4 different options for the community to consider as we move forward and provide feedback on. So we have short videos that are going to go through each option. At the end of each option, we'll take some Q&A. You guys have any questions? So we'll go ahead and get started with the first video here.
Master Plan Option 1 includes renovations and additions to current schools while keeping the existing grade configuration. This is the district's current grade configuration and schools. Phase 1 includes renovations and additions to the following: Liberty Early Childhood, Shawnee Early Childhood, Freedom Elementary, Adena Elementary, Cherokee Elementary, Ridge Junior, Liberty Junior, Hopewell Junior, West Freshman, East High School, and West High School. Phase 2 includes renovations and additions to the following: Wyandotte Early Childhood, Heritage Early Childhood, Union Elementary, Van Gordon Elementary, Woodland Elementary, Endeavor Elementary, Independence Elementary, Plains Junior, and East Freshman. Final configuration is 22 schools in use, 0 schools closed, 0 new schools, and 22 additions and/or renovations. Total master plan cost is $514 million. The total cost includes Phase 1 work, Phase 2 work, and possible future renovations to district facilities.
So option 1 is basically a status quo for our district. There's no grade level configuration changes. We keep all of our buildings that we currently have. And what we do is we would go in and try to renovate all those buildings to come up to current standards. As Jenny mentioned earlier, this is our go-it-alone plan. If we do not want to participate with the state and go this route, this would all have to be locally funded through a local bond issue. So that's how option 1 would work. And the board thought it was important to have an option that has a baseline to it, that has an understanding for our community. If we did nothing but renovate, here's what option 1 would be. So are there any questions about option number 1? Yes.
So all of those renovations were to the newest schools?
All these renovations would, your question was, are all these renovations to the newest schools? Yeah. No, all these renovations would include all 22 schools eventually. Oh, okay. With the ones that need the most work would be up front. So like your West Freshmen, your Creekside, your Woodlands, those would be focused on first in that kind of a plan. So try to bring those up to current standards first. Yes.
So if I'm understanding this, just scanning, this is the most expensive option and our local community would have to fund it 100% on our own?
Yes, your question was, is this the most expensive option? And it is. And you have to fund it completely on your own as a community. And we, not you, we have to fund it completely on our own as a community. Yes.
So kind of adding to that point with these totals is like, since you don't get the rebate on this, is that the estimated cost before the rebate? Like how does that equate to, assessment and a levy relative to $100,000 of value? Like that's, what is that?
Yeah, and we'll get into that. As we go through the 4 options, we'll explain how that works. So as you get through the options, all options are going to have a final cost plan. And options 2, 3, and 4, 29% of that total cost would be funded by the state if we partner with the state. So we'll get through that. Yes.
When these existing buildings are all renovated, will they operate as efficiently in terms of HVAC, all the utilities, all of those things as a new building?
Good question. Your question is, would they operate as efficiently being renovated as a new building? In some cases, some systems may operate efficiently. In other cases, they would not. Sometimes you are band-aiding a bad problem that's going to come back in a relatively short period of time. So it depends really on the system. Some life-safety systems you put in, they're going to work perfectly fine. HVAC systems, depending on what pipes are already run or what you need to do, may not be as efficient as it could be, depending on existing infrastructure and what you have to work around to make that work.
Educationally, no.
What's that, Jim?
Educationally, no.
And from an educational standpoint and the flexibility to do stuff, and Matt talked about the educational equity, it would not be from that perspective. Yes, sir.
You don't have like timelines for how phases 1 and 2 for any of these options work?
Timelines.
And then mainly for option 1, if you're renovating or adding, how does that fit into the school calendar year?
Right.
Planning that construction out?
Right. So the question is the timing of all the options. All the options are based off of basically a 10-year plan. So when you partner and you look at your thing, you're looking over the next 10 years where you're going to be in 10 years. So if each phase is roughly 3 to 4 years over that 10 years. So phase 1 is 3 to 4 years, phase 2, 3 to 4 years, and the last phase is the same. So we're looking at, there's a lot of logistics that need to be handled, and that goes well beyond this meeting and what we're trying to inform you guys. So as we narrow down the option and pick an option, there'll be a lot of discussion about logistics and how that's going to work as far as, if we're going to renovate this school, where do those kids go? How long is that renovation going to take? Do we have any swing space to move kids while this building's renovated? That type of planning would have to be done with all these. But if you're staying with option 1 and looking at it, if you're living in the buildings that you're going to renovate, it becomes much more of a logistical problem that you need to solve to get that done. That answer your question?
Yeah, because it is more based on risk-based. Right. If that's been factored into that total cost, or if you're going to go over or under,
This cost is based on construction costs and bringing the buildings up to current speed. So logistics and timing, that would all have to be budgeted within that number, hopefully. Else you could have cost overruns or that's way. But there are some logistical cost considerations with that. The timeline for sprinklers, it would really depend on which buildings go first and working with your local jurisdictions to get the permits and what you need to do and the timing of that. So buildings that are not sprinklered, like this one is not sprinklered, if you're going to renovate it, that would be one of the first things that they're going to have you do is bring it up life safety code to have it sprinklered. So there is no timeline on that. Yes, sir.
Since this is the only option that we go alone, are there advantages to going alone? In other words, for instance, if we go alone, do we have to do everything the state tells us to do as far as specifications, etc.? So
the question was, if we go it alone, is this better than having to do it with the state partnership? So it's a broad question. If you go it alone, you do not have to follow any of the state guidelines, but we're still going to use the same design manual that the state uses to bring our buildings up to current code. The design manual that is used by the OFCC is not unique or different or way off in left field. All schools nowadays are designed to this type of standard, so it behooves us to look at this design manual and bring our buildings up using that design manual. So if we go with the state, like any organization, if you're going to take money from them, they have certain rules and guidelines you got to follow. In the early days of the OFCC, they were a lot more stringent and strict. It's this way or no way. There's a lot more flexibility and community involvement and engagement in that process where you can have a conversation if you want to do things slightly different. And there's a good educational reason to do it, and your community supports that. They'll work with us on those types of things. So it's not a black and white, do it this way or you don't get anything. It's definitely a partnership in that process. Yes.
Maybe it's an issue of semantics, but I'm hearing bringing them up to code but then I'm hearing creating collaboration spaces and, you know, comparing to other school districts around. Do each of these options all apply the same standards in terms of what will be done in and with the buildings?
Yes, as far as the standard is the design manual that's given to us by the state. So, for instance, in this building, we're bringing up to current standards as far as the mechanicals, infrastructure piece, but to design collaboration spaces and do things differently, that's going to take a lot more work and effort to do that. You may have to lose classrooms. You may have to do different things to create that collaboration space that you typically don't have naturally in this building that is 35 years old. So in the end, yes, you want to have those spaces and create those spaces. It's just going to be a lot more intensive to get that done in a space that wasn't designed to house those. For instance in time, I'm going to go into option 2, but I'll be here and Matt will be here and even Jenny will be here to answer any questions as we go through. We just want to get through these and respect people's time, and we'll be around to answer more specific questions. But going on to option number 2 here.
Master Plan Option 2. The grade configuration changes to the following: Pre-K, K through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 8, and 9 through 12. Phase 1 includes the following new schools: 2 new K through 3 schools, 1 new 4 through 6 school, 1 new 7 through 8 school, and additions to East and West high schools. In Phase 1, the following schools will be closed: Creekside Early Childhood, Hopewell Early Childhood, Adena Elementary, Hopewell Junior, and West Freshman. Phase 2 includes the following additional new schools: 2 additional new K through 3 schools, and 1 additional new 4 through 6 school. In Phase 2, the following schools will be closed: Shawnee Early Childhood, Heritage Early Childhood, Freedom Elementary, Woodland Elementary, and Liberty Junior. Final configuration is 19 schools in use, 10 schools closed, 7 new schools, and 2 additions. Total master plan cost is $508 million. The total cost includes Phase 1 work, Phase 2 work, and possible future renovations to district facilities.
So option number 2, the big theme for option number 2 is basically the elimination of your freshman and standalone campuses. So you go to a true 9 to 12 high school campus, and then that is done by building additions onto those high schools to accommodate a freshman level class at each building. There is, in this configuration, there is one less transition for students. They eliminate that 9th grade transition, and the buildings go from a K2 configuration to a K3 configuration. And we have a standalone pre-K building at Liberty ECS right now. What questions do I have for option number 2? Yes?
And when schools are closed and new schools are open, are they built on that same property, or are they built in new places?
So that's a good question. For these options, looking at where the schools are going to be built would be part of that final plan selection where we're going to do it. We believe we have enough property, regardless of where the schools are right now, that we do not have to purchase property. So we use existing property. So we may use all the properties, we may not use all the properties. And how that final layout or that configuration, it's going to take more community feedback once we get to the final option. So for instance,
All the schools near me have closed as a result of this.
Right.
So will we still have community schools in, like I'm in the old Westchester part?
Right, so you're looking down by like a Shawnee and a Adena and a Hopewell. So looking at the plan and where would be the best site in that area to accommodate families in that in those areas. So would it be the Shawnee site, the Adena site, maybe the Hopewell site? All that would have to be determined as we finalize the selection of the option and work through those logistics. But again, looking at the options, we feel like we have enough land that the district owns to build if we have to build in those areas. Yes, sir.
How does one pre-K school facilitate use across the entire district?
Well, right now we don't have a dedicated pre-K school. We have we have two schools. We have Van Gordon Elementary that houses our preschool program, and we have 3 classrooms at Liberty ECS that accommodates, because we have too many children with needs to accommodate it all at one building. Going to a standalone pre-K building, we'd be able to open up our pre-K program to a wider number of community members and have it in a central location in the district. Yes?
I have a question. Is the reconfiguration of the grades, is that a pre-phase 1 step? Is that the first thing that happens in these options?
That's part of the logistics process, and when that actually occurs, again, if you look at options 2, 3, and 4, no matter what option you select, there's going to be some kind of reconfiguration of our attendance zones to make that happen. So when that happens and how that happens will be that community outreach and talk through about, okay, we're going to K3 buildings, which buildings are going to be the K3 buildings, where are they going to be located, and when do we start transitioning to that. So maybe over a multi-year phase in how we do it, but in the end state, that would be the end state of how that would look, if that makes sense.
It'll be a little messy. You know, I mean, I think everyone realizes that, everyone here realizes that and sees that, and it'll be a little bit clunky.
Yes, sir.
We see these great posters. I appreciate the work that's gone into this so far. And dollar figures, I'm just looking at master plan costs, option to option. They're all about the same to me. And I'm interested in knowing, can we see the list of assumptions that went into putting these dollar figures together, like the rest of the assumptions, right? Not only what you're presenting tonight, but the rest of the story, what's been looked at, please?
Sure. Yeah, it should be on our web. We have a lot of information on our website now, but we'll make sure that what we've discussed and what we've talked about over the past several years has done it. And if you go back, we have some of our facility committee meetings that have been videotaped and are online, and we talk through the various options that were out there and how it got narrowed down to these 4. So there's a lot of rich dialogue in those meetings. It's maybe time consuming to do it, but it is out there, and we definitely can have more dialogue about that. Sure.
What is the projected timeline on this to accomplish all of this?
Timelines for all these is over a 10-year period. So, and that timeline doesn't begin, and Jenny's going to talk about this after we go through the options. That timeline does not begin until the community decides that they're going to pass a bond levy to fund this. And Jenny will talk about how that process will work, but it's a 10-year time frame for this to take place after the funds are secured, regardless of the option.
So this 508 million is the cost to us, or the cost not including the state?
That is the total cost of the entire plan for this. So if you look at doing every piece of work that's in the master plan, building new buildings, renovating existing buildings, if you do all those things to bring every single one of your buildings up to current standards, that's $508 million. So if you look at it for this option, it's about $360 million would be the district portion, and the state would contribute about $147 million. That make sense? Any other questions? We'll go on to 3. All right.
Master Plan Option 3. The grade configuration changes to the following: Pre-K, K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Phase 1 includes the following new schools: 1 new K through 5 school, 1 new 6 through 8 school, and 1 new 9 through 12 options building shared by East and West high schools. In Phase 1, the following schools will be closed: Adena Elementary, Creekside Early Childhood, Freedom Elementary, and West Freshman. Phase 2 includes the following additional new schools: 2 additional new K through 5 schools, and 1 additional new 6 through 8 school. In Phase 2, the following schools will be closed: Hopewell Early Childhood, Heritage Early Childhood, Shawnee Early Childhood, Woodland Elementary, Hopewell Junior, and Liberty Junior. Final configuration is 18 schools in use, 10 schools closed, 6 new schools, and 0 additions. Total master plan cost is $491 million. The total cost includes Phase 1 work, Phase 2 work, and possible future renovations to district facilities.
All right, option number 3 is a little bit different in the fact that we have a whole new grade configuration that we're considering. One of the themes that we talked about that was consistent was reducing the number of transitions for students. In this option, students would stay in the building K through 5. Then we have true middle school, 6-8. Then the high schools is where it gets a little bit unique as far as keeping our existing high schools and either building a new, what we call shared option. So this would be a school that would be shared between both high schools. It's modeled loosely off a model that's dubbed up in Dublin, Ohio, where Dublin City Schools had 3 high schools. They're talking about going to 4 high schools, and they decided to renovate an old office building and create an Emerald campus. And what that does in your master planning process is kids will be assigned throughout the day, either at the main campus or the shared building. And you'd have classes in the shared building that could be such things as our cyber program that we have East and West, our innovation incubator U classes. Maybe we have a great opportunity at East High School with the Spark magazine. Maybe that's placed at the shared option so West students could also have that same opportunity. But looking at those type of programs that could maybe don't have a full day throughout the day, and you can be more efficient by hosting those programs at one site and shuttling throughout the day. There are some questions about, we don't provide high school busing right now, so how are my kids going to get to the options piece? So from our perspective, if we don't continue to provide high school busing, you know, the only obligation would be get your student to wherever they start at, whether it's the main campus or the options. And from that point on, it'll be up to the district to shuttle throughout that day to make sure that your student gets to and from the building they need to take their classes. Again, we have fewer schools, so there is going to be some operational savings here from a facilities and maintenance perspective, where if you have fewer buildings to maintain roofs, parking lots, mow grass, that type of thing, you will have some operational savings in this one. You may have a little bit more operational costs from a transportation if you're shuttling students all day long, so balance that out. Any questions about option 3? Yes, sir.
So the third one, or the third high school, that's not your traditional high school, so like your extracurriculars would still, you'd go to East or West for those?
Right.
Okay.
Right, yeah, you'll still be assigned to your East or West student, but you may have a class here that's at, and it's not confined to what we have currently. Maybe there's a future opportunity that we haven't even dreamed of yet. That would be great, but it would be a great place for that building. Some of your Butler Tech courses may be great.
I was kind of thinking I was in kind of like this could be like a Butler Tech type situation.
It could be that. It could be other things that we haven't even thought about, different languages or whatever.
Yep. And Ben, you're still tied to your home school.
Right. Perfect. Thank you.
Does this allow for future growth?
Does this allow for future growth with the question? All these options are based on our enrollment forecast at the end of 10 years. So they're all going to accommodate where we're going to be at the end of 10 years in our enrollment. So it is built for the end game where we're going to be at the end of 10 years.
What's that number?
It's in the mid 17,000 range of students. And that's what was done a couple years ago. As you said, we're already ahead of that number. As we get closer and finalize an option, we'll re-engage and have an updated enrollment forecast done to make sure that we're still tracking towards that mid 17,000 number.
Kind of on that same line, if you look at that map up there in northern Liberty Township, there's a lot of land still available. Do developers contact you guys first and say, hey, I'm looking to put this many houses here, so this is, like, let you guys know how many kids might be coming? No, I didn't know. I'm just curious.
In part of that study, we do use professional demographer organizations that work with our townships to understand, you know, if it's a farm that's going to be zoned, is it going to be multifamily homes, is it going to be single homes? So they have a projection of what it's going to be and what type of families might live there to help engage, to help understand what that enrollment could be as it builds out in these communities too.
We usually hear first from our partners in the townships. They'll give us a heads up that a developer's coming in.
I was just wondering where you guys were in that trickle down phase of when you actually found out.
Any questions about option 3?
What's the shared cost of the, like, between the state and?
Oh, for this one, 348 million roughly would be the district portion, and 142 million would be the state share. All right, we'll go to option number 4.
Master Plan Option 4. The grade configuration changes to the following: pre-K, K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Phase 1 includes the following new schools: 1 new K through 5 school and 2 new 9 through 12 schools. Plains Junior, Ridge Junior, and East Freshman will become K through 5 schools, and East and West High Schools will become 6 through 8 schools. The following schools will be closed: Creekside Early Childhood, Hopewell Early Childhood, Adena Elementary, Hopewell Junior, Liberty Junior, and West Freshman. In Phase 2, the following schools will be closed: Shawnee Early Childhood, Heritage Early Childhood, Woodland Elementary, and Freedom Elementary. Final configuration is 15 schools in use, 10 schools closed, 3 new schools, and 0 additions. Total master plan cost is $502 million. The total cost includes Phase 1 work, Phase 2 work, and possible future renovations to district facilities.
All right, option 4, again, this one has the least number of transitions for students. It's at K-5, so kids stay in their elementary school longer. We repurpose our 2 current high schools to become our middle schools. They house 3 grades now. They house 10, 11, and 12 right now, so we know they can handle 6, 7, and 8. And what we do is build 2 new high schools to accommodate the grades 9 through 12. And with this plan, you eliminate then go down from 22 schools in use to 15 schools in use. So from an operational standpoint, we're working on those numbers now, but there is significant operational savings potentially out of this by eliminating, those buildings and reducing the number of buildings you have to maintain.
How does that jive with decreasing class sizes?
Part of that is part of our look and part of our planning as well. Some of the buildings that you're going to build are going to be a little bit larger than the current ones, so you have to build a little bit larger buildings to accommodate more classrooms. But we're still going to have the same number of students to accommodate. Yes, sir.
Is there a reason that you would not keep the high schools with all the, I'm just thinking with all the extracurricular infrastructure that's out there, fields, that they support, where middle schools don't have like football games, right? And etc. Like, versus just keeping the high school as is and building middle schools. Why did we shift them and build versus keep them?
Because the current high schools are not big enough to accommodate grades 9 through 12. So in the option 2, you would add on to those high schools to accommodate, but you could do it that way in option 2.
So if you're building new high schools, are you building new fields? Are you keeping your old fields?
I think that's part of the discussions for the logistics piece of it. We've talked about, do we want to maintain the fields we have and upgrade those and make those your home fields and do that? Do you want your high school kids traveling to home games to another school? Do you want them to play at their home school? So all those would have to be community conversations about what they think is the right fit for a high school. Do you have all those facilities? We have enough community use of those stadiums and facilities that that would be a big part of the conversation is if we do add, or we don't add, what does that place limitations perhaps on our community and our ability to use the stadium if we're sharing now or not? We look at the high school, just have a large amount of practice fields and just have the game fields at the current high school still. So part of that is logistics and conversation that would need to happen within the community to see what the best fit.
That's not part of the cost.
Usually stadiums and stuff like that are all locally funded initiatives anyway. So the OCC doesn't plan out for those types of things. So that would be definitely a discussion for that. And I've had this with other people. As we get down and narrow the option, there's going to be a lot more opportunities for engagement. There's going to be maybe subcommittees, people who want to look specifically at special education, how it impacts this, athletics, band, choir, art, whatever it may be. There'll be different committees on talk about what do we think the best thing is for our students going forward, and what do you want to see in our schools to support these various programs. So there'll be lots of opportunities to have those discussions beyond what we're doing tonight. Tonight's just to provide you, these are the options. We want your feedback. Do you like them, not like them, and help us move forward and give the board more data to consider as they start to narrow it down to one option.
So, with the 6th through 8 kids going to the high schools, are there going to be renovations to make them less intimidating? Because I remember when our 9th grader walked into East Main Street, he was just like,
Well, if you, a lot of it too is how you set the schools up. You know, you have different wings. Maybe you have a 6th grade area, 7th grade area, and 8th grade area. So they're not going.
The street is extremely intimidating.
Yes.
To walk into for the very first time if you've never been there.
It is. It's a big school. There's no doubt about that. But the way that the leadership at the building will structure it to, so you're not going, like at the high school, you have classes all over right now, right? If in middle school, you can structure it 7th grade, 6th grade, so your classes are all in a core area. Maybe you have a gym. There's only one gym, so that's there. But you structure your day so you're with your core group of peers throughout that day, and you don't have to go from one end of the building to the other.
And they'll probably still do tours, because when junior high students come into their building, it's always a scary thing to go to a new building. And currently, they always do a trip, at least pre-COVID, where they would go visit the new school and get a tour. So they would get encounters with it, and they always do it, like they used to do a dance, like junior high dance, to like bring kids in.
Yeah, and our leadership teams would talk to other schools, you know, like Mason has a big middle school as well. How do they manage their day-to-day operations at a big middle school? What are the good, the bad, the ugly that we need to focus on if we go to this model of a large middle school? So, yes, sir.
Are assumptions included in your plans for options 2 through 4, including 1 for like the amount of cost for busing reducing or traffic flow at these new school locations?
Yeah.
Or even any other costs outside the building costs? Are those costs calculated anywhere?
They're not included in these costs. We're working right now on operational costs to see what it would be. Are there operational savings? From a transportation standpoint, we're still going to have the same number of kids, but are we more efficient by transporting to less buildings? The routes are shorter, and things of that nature. So that's more of a deep dive once we get down into the final options. But just off the top, looking at going from 22 buildings down to 15, you know you're going to have operational savings from redoing parking lots, roofs, HVAC systems on buildings that you don't have to do anymore. We know that for a fact. Again, we're going to be here to answer any more specific questions, and these plans are great, and I'm sure we talk about, okay, how are we going to make this work from a cost perspective, and that's where Jenny's going to come in and talk through what she's done to help us prepare for this. Jenny?
Thanks, Chris. So as Chris mentioned, we see this as like a 10-year phasing plan. So the way this would work, if we do partner with the state, we would be using our money first. So there would be 3 phases to this pretty large facilities master plan. So in that first phase, we would be using our district's money. In the second phase, we would still be using some of the district's money, but the state money would also be coming in. So it would be that partnership. And then in the third phase, that would be, as well as in the second, it would use the state money. So the next slide. So just for, I'm not sure how this would work with me being remote, but does anyone remember what our levy request was, what was approved in November of 2013? How many mills?
I know how much my taxes went up, but not millage.
So it was a combination levy. It It was a PI and an operating. How much was the PI?
I heard it. Who said it? Someone said 2 mils. I heard it.
Somebody said 2 mils? 2 mils, that's right. So the PI was 2 mils. How about the operating? You think it was less than 5?
Yes.
They said yes.
Very yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 3.5. So it was a total of 5.5 mils in November of 2013. I just to let you know, I've asked this is the third group I've asked this, and no one remembers. So I don't know whether that's good or bad, but no one remembers what the levy increase was in 2013. So one of the other questions is, when will we need to be on the ballot for this project? Because I would like to say that we would not need an additional levy, but we're going to need to ask for a bond issue approval before we can move forward with this project. So that would need to go on the ballot. We would need the approval from our community. When that decision has not been made, the first time that we could actually look at that is May of 2023. Then the following would be November of 2023. The next question I'm going to get, that I'm sure is in your heads, well, how many mills are we talking about? What kind of an increase are we going to be looking at for a facility plan for this district? One of the ways that we have been approaching this plan is we have been thinking about this for years. You know, Matt and Chris both talked about, we've been planning, we've been doing this, we've been starting and restarting for quite a while. Well, one of the things we've been doing in our office is, just like all of you have been taking advantage of lower interest rate, we've refinanced debt. The district debt, we've refinanced to lower those interest rates for all of you that we collect. We have also been trying to pay off our debt earlier. So as we've gone back and refinanced that debt, we've also restructured it so that we can minimize the impact to the taxpayer. So what does that mean? What that means is, when you would be asking for a bond issue, at the same time, we are going to be paying off debt so that the net overall increase to you as the taxpayer would be minimal. For example, you currently are paying over 3 mils to the school district for its current bonds and current debts. In December of 2028, those basically are paid off. We still have a very small amount of debt after that date. So it's kind of like, I gave this example, if you have a car payment and you have a new car, and that car payment is $800 a month, and then in 6 years, you start having issues with that car, and at the same time, you've had a loan for a 6-year period of time. At that same time, you decide, hey, I need a new car. So you're going to go get a new car, and you still have that $800 a month payment, but now you have a new car. So we have worked on a plan to try to kind of do something simpler, while at the same time we're paying off our debt. We're going to be entering into new debt for this new master plan. And so we'll be replacing the new debt with the old
Does anybody have any questions, general questions for Jenny?
Jenny, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more about the requirements that the state would impose on the district if partner to get their funds?
Can somebody repeat the question? I'm sorry.
He asked, if I'm saying it right, he asked if we went with the state, what requirements would they put on the district?
So as far as those requirements, I know Chris mentioned this. Back when the district did its last master's facilities plan, our state share was much, much lower, and they were not as flexible as they are currently. So what those requirements would be, it depends. I hate to say that, but there's a lot of requirements they have. They are flexible in something. As far as the money situation, they are also a little bit more flexible on your indebtedness and how we can borrow money as well if you partner with the state.
Any other questions for Jenny at this point? All right. So this is where we need the feedback from all of you. We're going to use ThoughtExchange QR codes. We also have note cards and pencils. If you don't want to use the technology, that's totally fine. So what you see is you see our 4 options here, 2 on this side, 2 on that side. We have the same posters in the hallway when you first came in. So if there's a crowd here and you don't want to wait, you can go out there. It's the same options 1 through 4. All you need to do is scan the QR code, tell us what you like about each option, what you don't like about each option, and give us some input that way. And then, Betsy, we're going to keep the ThoughtExchange going for a few weeks, and so you can come back and see what other people have put in there, read the thoughts, rate them, see what other people are saying about that as well. Then the board will ultimately use your feedback when we're discussing these options. And ultimately, the board will make that vote, whichever one they believe is the best one for our kids in the future for Lakota schools. So that's sort of your marching orders right now, is just QR codes or note cards, either here or out in the hallway. Did you have Mrs. O'Connor?
We're also planning for some more community engagement meetings.
Tons. We're going to have plenty of community engagement meetings. This is not the Last one, we'll be doing this for years. Years. We will. I mean, that's just part of the process. And so this is not a, one size fits all. We want that input, we want that feedback from all of you as we go through this process. So Chris and I will be sticking around to answer any questions. I'm not sure what Jenny's timeline is and Adam's timeline, but again, that's your homework is QR codes or note cards either here or out in the hallway. Thank you. You can also, thank you, Betsy. You can also go, if you don't want to scan the QR codes, you can go to the tiny URLs, and it gives you the same type of questions and answers. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.